Discover the incredible rescue of a tiger cub trapped in rock, an inspiring journey to freedom. The sun shone bright over the rolling green hills of rural Ohio, casting a warm glow that danced through the branches of the towering trees. Sarah, a single mother of two, felt a moment of peace as she led Emma and Jake down the familiar path into the woods. After a week of bills, chores, and countless reminders of their economic struggles, this escape into nature felt like a breath of fresh air, a slice of freedom amidst their tangled lives. They left, their voices mingling with the rustling leaves, a reminder that joy, despite their circumstances, could still flourish. In the heart of the woods, beneath a canopy of green, an unearthly cry shattered their fragile peace. The pained wails echoed like a siren, and they froze, wide-eyed. Sarah's heart raced as they turned toward the sound. The cries led them to a rocky crevice, where a tiger cub writhed helplessly, trapped and terrified. For a moment, everything else faded: their worries, their struggles. All that existed was the anguish of this tiny creature. Tears stung Sarah's eyes as she watched it call out for help. "Mom! We have to save it!" Emma's voice broke through, filled with urgency and compassion, embodying their father's values of kindness and resilience. Jake, a little more hesitant, glanced up at his sister and then at their mother. Sarah felt a tightness in her chest. Here they were fighting to stay afloat, and now this is what she was expected to grapple with? Should they put themselves on the line for a creature that represented the very hope they were clawing to hold on to? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With trembling hands, Sarah focused on the cub, a symbol of fighting against all odds. They tried lifting the heavy stones but faltered, their inexperience revealing itself in failed attempts. Each time they stumbled, hope dimmed a little more, weighed down by the whispers of neighbors who surely judged them for pursuing a ridiculous mission when their own life was unstable. What are they thinking? She imagined them sneering, yet couldn't shake Emma's determination, radiant as the sun on their backs. Just as their energy waned, neighbors began to appear, drawn by the commotion. They rallied together, offering strength and wisdom, sharing tools and matching smiles. A sense of community washed over Sarah, lifting her spirit despite the odds. Faces brightened, empathy interlocking like a lifeline, and as they pressed their hands against rocks, she realized this was more than a rescue. This was about reconnecting, reminding each other that they weren't alone in their struggles. The tension escalated as the sun dipped closer to the horizon. Sarah's heart raced. What would they risk to save this cub? The town's judgment clouded her thoughts, yet deep down, she felt a warrior's resolve. Could this be the turning point she and her family so desperately needed? With one last shove, adrenaline surged as they felt the weight shift. The cries echoed louder. Would salvation be theirs as they skated the thin line between taking a chance and staying rooted in safety? What would happen if freeing the cub brought them closer to redefining their very existence? The answer loomed heavy in the air as they edged toward their fateful decision. With a surge of energy, Sarah and the neighbors pushed harder against the stones. The rough edges scraped their fingers, a testament to their determination. Each shift of the rocks sent a renewed shout from the cub, and with each shout, a new jolt of urgency shot through Sarah's veins. Emma gripped her mother's arm, eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope that mirrored Sarah's own heart. "Come on, everyone. Just a little more. We can do this." Sarah's voice rang out, stronger than she felt. She couldn't let her children see her doubt. Together, they dug deeper, finding strength in the determination that echoed among them. The mixed group, friends, neighbors, even a few curious bystanders, together shared one purpose: lifting the stones with coordinated effort. Sarah couldn't remember when she had felt so connected, so united in a single goal. Just as exhaustion began to tug at her body, a rumble went through the earth. The stones moved. The cries shifted from despair to anticipation. With one final push, a sizable rock rolled off, landing with a thud that echoed like an exclamation point in the quiet woods. And there it was, the tiger cub, blinking up at them, trembling but free. Relief flooded Sarah, followed closely by an overwhelming wave of love for this creature, for her children, for the community that made this miracle possible. Emma squealed with joy as she fell to her knees beside the cub. The little tiger looked up at them with wide, expressive eyes filled with the innocence of a creature that had endured far too much. Sarah knelt beside Emma, placing a gentle hand on the soft fur of the cub's head, heart swelling like it hadn't tea in a long time. But Jake hesitated, his small fists clenched. What if it gets scared? What if it hurts us? His voice held the remnants of childhood, which clung to fear even in the presence of something beautiful. Sarah understood his worry but felt compelled to reassure him. We won't hurt it, buddy. We're here to help. It needs us just like we needed each other today. She looked deeply into his eyes, hoping her steadfastness would carry him through. Just then, a loud snap of twigs behind them startled the group. They turned to see a larger figure emerge from the shadows, a mother tiger, formidable and fierce, prowling closer. Gasps filled the air as she came to a stop, fierce eyes scanning the scene. Sarah's heart raced in panic. Would the mother see their rescue as a threat? Emma instinctively moved closer to the cub, almost protectively, while Jake held tightly to his sister. The crowd shifted uneasily, sensing the rising tension. Sarah took a deep breath, trying to summon courage. The tiger would react. Would they finally lose this precious moment? As the mother tiger's gaze landed on Sarah, a strange connection seemed to spark. Would it understand their intentions? Finding her voice again, Sarah whispered, I know you're scared, but we just wanted to help. The words fell thick in the silence as those around her held their breath. Would they manage to hold on to this moment of miracle or lose everything? The air crackled with uncertainty as they all stood in that fragile space between fear and hope, waiting for the mother tiger's response. The mother tiger paused, her powerful body taut, muscles rippling beneath her orange coat. The air was electric, filled with a mixture of hope and dread. Sarah could barely breathe as she locked eyes with the magnificent creature. Would this strong, wild mother see them as protectors or intruders? Emma crouched lower, her delicate hands brushing against the soft earth, her gaze firmly on the cub, oblivious to the peril extending behind her. Jake, still gripping his sister, whispered harshly, Mom. What do we do? His worry hung thick in the air, palpable enough for everyone to feel. Just stay calm, sweetie, Sarah said, her voice barely more than a whisper as she kept her focus on the mother tiger. She felt internally torn, a part of her wanting to shield her children while another yearned to connect with the wild heart before her. Then, the mother tiger stepped forward, each movement graceful yet foreboding. As the crowd collectively held its breath, she sniffed the ground, her nose twitching as she caught the scent of her baby. Sarah's heart raced. This felt like a turning point, but would it be for better or worse? Then, the cub called again, its voice pleading, high-pitched and tinged with distress. The mother's ears perked up, and in an instant, something shifted in her demeanor. The anger and confusion faded, replaced with a fierce protective instinct. She turned her gaze back to the crowd, deepening the connection Sarah had sensed. This moment felt sacred and fragile. It's okay, Sarah murmured, feeling compelled to bridge the gap between them. She took a half-step forward, hands outstretched, palms facing the tiger, as if to show she meant no harm. We helped your baby. With the people around her still, Sarah could almost hear the whispers of their hearts, all resonating with the same prayer that this bold move would not end in fear or flight. The mother tiger took another step forward, closer now, her great paws touching the edge of the makeshift rescue site. Time stood still, a heartbeat stretching into infinity as the weight of the moment settled over everyone. In the stillness, the cub, emboldened by the presence of its mother, began to shuffle toward the big cat. The connection between mother and child became electric, palpable. The tiger cub nuzzled against its mother's leg, letting out a series of soft whines. The mother paused, her fierce demeanor softening, perhaps recognizing the bonds of love and instinctual care that had brought them all to this moment. Oh! Emma whispered, eyes wide with wonder. Tears welled in her eyes, and Sarah felt pride blossom inside her. Just then, a noise broke the silence, a crackle of twigs from deeper in the woods that made everyone jump. The mother tiger turned sharply, the flick of her tail betraying her instincts. A rustle came again, more insistent this time. Was there more trouble lurking in the shadows? Everyone stay back, Sarah called, instinctively stepping in front of her children. The tension in the air thickened, and the mother tiger let out a low growl, eyes narrowing. In that harrowing moment, as the threat loomed closer, Sarah felt her heart pounding with the questions of survival. Could they protect both the cub and themselves? Would Mother Nature murmur a possible accord or unleash her wrath? The forest held its breath, as did the crowd, all questioning the safety of the fragile bond they had forged. What would emerge from behind the trees? Fear gripped Sarah's lungs as the shadows shifted again. What was coming next? The rustling in the underbrush grew louder, an echo that reverberated through the anxious crowd. Sarah's heart raced, the pounding in her chest drowning out every other sound. Around her, whispers turned into hushed gasps as everyone strained to see what was coming. She could feel the mother tiger's muscles tense, ready for action, her instincts heightened. Then, from behind a cluster of trees, a large figure emerged. It was a young male tiger, muscular, with a striking coat, but there was something disoriented about him. He appeared agitated, glancing back and forth as though something had spooked him. The crowd backing away instinctively tightened around Sarah and her children. "Mom, is it going to fight?" Jake's voice quivered, a mixture of fear and curiosity. No. No, Sarah reassured, but she wasn't sure herself. The young male, Samuel, was in the middle of a stiffening territorial display, his tail up and his growl deeper. The mother tiger turned to face him, the tension in her body spoke volumes. This was her domain, and intruders were not welcome. The cub, still nestled against its mother's leg, stopped whimpering, peering around at the newcomer with wide eyes. It was as if they were all trapped in a standoff, the weight of nature's laws hanging heavily in the air. The crowd tightened once more, shifting nervously. The mother tiger stood firm. Sarah could sense her strength, that fierce protectiveness that had guided her through countless dangers. She knew this was crucial. One misstep could spark chaos. "Stay very still," Sarah said, her eyes glued to the scene unfolding, the urgency in her voice palpable. "We have to let them handle this." But as she spoke, Samuel made a sudden move. He stepped forward, his growl rising in pitch, the fierceness of a young male asserting his dominance. The mother tiger responded with a low snarl, echoing her authority. Time seemed to stretch as Sarah's heart sank. But then, against all odds, something happened. The mother tiger lowered her head slightly, a gesture of submission mixed with maternal strength. It was a choice, a gamble of understanding over violence. Maybe, just maybe, this could work. "Look!" Emma cried out, her voice breaking the silence, pointing as the young male paused. There was a moment, brief yet potent, where recognition flickered between the tigers. The bonds of kinship, the deep-rooted ties of shared blood seemed to spark in that fragile pause, and then, like a chain reaction, the chaos shifted. Samuel's aggression ebbed, and he lowered his gaze to the little cub, realizing his place in the family hierarchy. The mother tiger stepped back, allowing the cub to move independently. The sight was heartwarming, a small creature gathering all the courage it had, stepping toward a confusing world. "It's okay, little one," Sarah whispered. She felt the weight of her fears lifting, replaced with a fierce sense of hope. "No. Stay with us," Jake urged softly, but Sarah knew the bond was stronger than fear. The little cub was stepping away, drawn to the rhythm of family, to the maternal warmth it had longed for. Every step it took toward its destiny echoed the one she would have taken for her own children. Just as the family was on the verge of reuniting, the bushes rustled again, waking dread from its slumber. This time, the danger felt different, sudden, unexpected. "What now?" Sarah muttered, adrenaline spiking as she caught movement to the left. But her attention was split, every instinct screamed at her to maintain the balance they had forged. The earth seemed to tremble beneath the weight of the unknown. Would they face another threat? Would they lose this delicate connection they had barely formed? And just as a shadow loomed closer, the crowd held its breath. Would this family find safety together, or would shadows of the forest tear them apart? As the shadow materialized closer, it morphed into another figure. A massive bear emerged from behind the trees, its dark fur contrasting sharply against the sun-dappled clearing. There was an air of menace as it lumbered forward, drawn by the commotion. Gasps rippled through the crowd, an electric tension igniting in the air. Sarah's heart plummeted. "Everyone, back up," she commanded, her voice steady but laced with urgency. Keeping her eyes fixed on the bear, she felt the grip of panic return, like a cold hand squeezing her heart. The mother tiger, still poised to protect her cub, prepared to defend her territory against this new threat. "Mom, what if it comes for us?" Jake's voice trembled, eyes wide with fear. "We're safe if we stay calm." "Watch and listen," Sarah whispered, squeezing her son's hand tightly. The bear stopped, its thick neck craning to both sides, its nose quivering as it caught sight of Samuel and the mother tiger. Confusion rumbled within its deep chest as it weighed its options. But then, the bear's gaze shifted, landing on the little cub, who had ventured just a few feet away, unaware of the impending danger. "Get back!" Sarah hissed, though her voice felt small against the backdrop of nature's unfolding drama. In that moment, something remarkable happened. Samuel let out a roar, not of aggression, but as a warning as he stepped protectively in front of the cub. The mother's eyes darted nervously between her cub and Samuel, neither ready to let the other fall prey to the looming bear. The growl of the mother tiger mixed with the bear's grumbles created a symphony of survival instincts. The crowd behind Sarah fell into an uneasy silence, jaws clenched and breaths held, each person responding to the primal call of nature. "Will they fight?" Emma whispered, her little fingers creeping into Sarah's side. "I don't know, sweetheart. But we have to trust them," Sarah replied, her own heart hammering wildly. The tightening of the mother tiger's muscles spoke volumes, and Sarah sensed the potent mix of fear and fierce maternal love within her. The bear stepped forward once more, now directly challenging the tigers. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the trees. All heads turned. A branch fell beside the bear, causing it to pause in its advancement. Sensing this moment of uncertainty, Samuel charged toward the bear, darting left and right as he kept the animal's attention firmly on himself. "Go, Samuel!" came a whisper from the audience, a small cheer for the brave young tiger finding his courage. As Samuel danced in front of the bear, the mother tiger seized her opportunity. She quickly nudged her cub, her eyes sparkling with urgency. "Now!" she seemed to convey. With a quick flick of its small body, the cub scurried back behind its mother's protective frame. Sarah's breath hitched, a combination of panic and awe at this raw display of instinct and familial love. Would the bear choose to back down? Or would they witness a collision of forces that could shatter lives forever? The tension seemed to build, every heartbeat echoing in the silent crowd. The path of safety felt so close yet terrifyingly distant, and then, in an extraordinary turn of events, the bear hesitated, as if sensing the unity of the tiger family, bolstered by the bond they had forged. For a heart-stopping moment, it decided to withdraw, slowly backpedaling into the underbrush, disappearing into the shadows from which it emerged. Sarah felt the air shift, relief flooding through her. She turned to look at Emma and Jake, whose expressions mirrored her own, an elation mixed with disbelief. "That was intense," Jake exclaimed, his voice breaking the overwhelming silence. "It was beautiful," Emma said, gaze still locked on where the bear once stood, the fear in her eyes slowly dissolving into wonder. But just as they began to breathe easier, Sarah's instincts tingled again. Something else rustled in the distance, not from the underbrush but from above. She tilted her head back, eyes scanning the trees. What now loomed overhead, threatening a different kind of storm? A low rumble grew louder, a distant sound that echoed through the leaves. The single beam of sunlight that had filtered through the branches now seemed swallowed by darkening clouds. Sarah narrowed her eyes, searching the treetops. Her heartbeat quickened as she realized the sound bore the weight of something larger approaching. "Look!" cried Jake, pointing upward, his earlier fear replaced by a mix of curiosity and dread. A massive bird swooped from the sky, its wings stretching wide, casting a shadow over the clearing. At first, Sarah thought it might be a hawk, but as it continued its descent, she recognized it a majestic eagle, with its beak open, letting out a piercing cry that sent a shiver down her spine. "Isn't that amazing?" Emma gasped, the fear she had felt moments ago now bubbling into awe, but Sarah couldn't shake a gnawing worry. This was not just an arbitrary flight. The eagle, a symbol of power and might, was focusing on the disturbance below. Her attention flickered back to Samuel and the mother tiger, who seemed oblivious to the new threat forming above them. "Everyone, stay back!" she shouted again, a protective instinct surging within her. The crowd huddled together, eyes glued to the chaotic dance unfolding in the air. Suddenly, the eagle turned sharply, diving lower with a fierce intensity. Its talons were set in a downward point, directly aiming at Samuel. The young tiger, still buzzing with victory from scaring off the bear, was now entranced but unaware. Time slowed for Sarah as she reached out instinctively. "No! Samuel!" The shout burst from her lips, but it seemed to hang in the air without penetrating the thick atmosphere of impending chaos. Each person nearby stood frozen, jaws dropped in disbelief as the eagle continued its calculated descent. "Do it, Samuel!" A voice called from the crowd, inexplicably emboldening the little tiger, who finally turned, looking up just in time to see the eagle swooping aggressively toward him. Without hesitation, Samuel jumped, instinct guiding him as he swatted at the air. The force of his movement sent the eagle spiraling off course, narrowly escaping his claws. A collective gasp echoed from the crowd, relief mixed with tension hanging heavy in the moisture-laden air. The eagle pulled up just in time, flapping its impressive wings as it circled above and reassessed the scene below, its keen gaze catching the mother tiger's watchful eyes. Each voice in the crowd trembled, holding on to breathless anticipation. "What is it after?" Emma whispered, looking to Sarah, who felt a sense of dread creeping back in. "I don't know," Sarah replied, her heart racing again. "But we need to protect them." The mother tiger stood her ground, the fierce glare directed at the soaring bird, tail flicking back and forth with mounting intensity. Samuel, emboldened by the earlier confrontation, stood tall beside her, his small paws ready to defend his territory once more. Then, in a heart-stopping second, the eagle turned sharply, diving yet again, this time toward another corner of the clearing. A rustle came from beneath the thicket, a cry that was unmistakably distinct and unnerving. "Look!" Jake yelled, pointing frantically. Something was moving in the underbrush, struggling under a thick pile of rocks and brush. A small, furry silhouette emerged, frantic and panicked. It was a tiger cub, caught and trapped without any ability to escape. Tension hung in the air, the eagle's target unveiled. Sarah felt her fear transform into an urgent need to act. "We have to save that cub," she shouted, her voice rising above the rumbles above. But could anyone dare to approach while the eagle lurked? The pull of instinct and emotional bonds collided fiercely within Sarah, leaving her torn between safety and the call to action. "Sarah, are you sure?" A voice questioned at her side, filled with apprehension. She met the pleading eyes of her children, realizing that sometimes the fiercest storms reveal the brightest lights. What decision would she make? The eagle screeched overhead, preparing for a final dive. Would they risk everything to save the little cub before it was too late? The eagle was almost a blur as it soared above, its sharp cries piercing the thick tension hanging in the air. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest, a war drum echoing her spiraling thoughts. Adrenaline surged through her veins. She could feel the weight of the moment, a mix of fear and determination. "Okay, listen," she called out, trying to steady her voice. "We are going to distract the eagle. Emma, Jake, I need you to follow my lead. We have to create a diversion." "Are you crazy?" Jake exclaimed, eyes wide. But there was a glimmer of resolve beneath his disbelief. He had always admired his mother's bravery. "No time for fear," Sarah retorted, her voice rising above the tension. "We do this together. We can't let that eagle take the cub." The mother tiger, sensing the urgency, let out a low, rumbling growl. Her eyes shifted between the eagle and her cub. She wasn't about to leave it to chance. Samuel mirrored her posture, readying himself, a tiny warrior beside his fierce protector. On the count of 3. Sarah shouted, rallying her children as she raised her hand. 1, 2. As she counted, the eagle prepared for its final dive. It wasn't just watching anymore, it was deciding. And Sarah could feel the air grow heavier, as if holding its breath along with them. 3. With that, Sarah dashed out from behind the tree line, waving her arms wildly, drawing the eagle's attention. Emma and Jake rushed after her, their own hearts racing, playing the part of support as they yelled and jumped around. Over here! Look at us! Jake hollered, filled with a mix of fear and bravery. The eagle shifted, its powerful wings manipulating the air as it veered from its prey. Sarah's heart soared for a brief moment, but it quickly sank again. She knew this was just buying time. At that moment, the mother tiger sprang into action, darting toward the brush where the cub struggled. This was her moment to protect, to fight with every bit of her instinct. Samuel followed closely, his little body fueled by a mix of trust in his mother and his own budding courage. Sarah felt a flicker of hope spark as the two tigers moved toward the trapped cub. But just then, the eagle's fierce focus shifted once more. It was not done yet. Back! Emma yelled, pulling Jake close as they stumbled back, eyes darting between the chaos unfolding. The eagle, now furious at being robbed of its potential meal, took a sharp turn, diving towards Sarah directly. Sarah, watch out! Jake shouted, panic gripping him, but Sarah was fixated on the tigers. In that split second, she realized what was happening. She watched, heart in her throat, as the mother tiger roared in defiance, her challenge echoing against the trees. The little cub, finally noticing its mother rushing toward it, renewed its frantic struggles. It cried out, a sound so full of fear and desperation that it lodged like a stone in Sarah's chest. The sounds of the animals, the mother's growl, the eagle's screech, and the cub's helpless whimpering formed an orchestra of survival. No. Not now. Sarah urged under her breath, willing time to freeze as the eagle dove again, talons extended. The universe felt unfair for putting them in this position. This was about them all, about courage and instinct, but how could they win against the primal force of nature? Finally, with one last push, the mother tiger reached the cub, thin legs of fur and fragile innocence hidden beneath jagged rocks. Would they make it out in time? Just as the eagle's shadow loomed closer, a sudden thought struck Sarah, a gut feeling urging her to shield the cub. Samuel! She yelled. You need to get to the cub. Help your mom. But could a small tiger face such a fierce predator? This was a test, and the outcome was still unknown. Would Samuel take his first step into the world of being a true protector, or would the eagle's fierce nature claim victory in this unyielding forest battle? Samuel's heart pounded like a drum in his tiny chest. Fear wrapped around him like a vine, but so did something else, a fierce spark of determination. He had watched his mother move with grace, her muscles tensing and rippling as she approached the cub. Now, it was his turn to act. Come on, Samuel. He heard his mother's voice, calm yet full of strength. Her eyes locked onto him, urging him forward. The eagle shrieked overhead, its shadow darkening the ground. It was time. With a sudden burst of energy, Samuel charged toward the cub, his legs moving almost without thought. The world around him faded to a blur. His mother's roar, the yells from Sarah and the kids, and the rustling leaves were drowned out by a single thought. The cub needed him. He reached the rock that trapped the cub, his small frame trembling with the weight of what was at stake. Just ahead, the little tiger cried out, its small body wedged tight amidst craggy stones. Fear sparked in its eyes, and Samuel felt a wave of empathy wash over him. He understood its terror, he was scared, too. Hold on. I'm coming. Samuel called, actually finding his voice through the fear. He dug his small paws against the jagged surface, gripping tightly, forcing himself to focus. With each scrape and cut against his tiny feet, courage flowed through him like a river, unwavering. Behind him, the eagle circled, its keen eyes locked onto the impending rescue. Each flap of its wings sent a cold shiver along Samuel's spine. But thoughts of failure weren't an option. He was no longer just the timid cub, he was a protector, just like his mother had shown him. "Come on, buddy, you can do it," Emma shouted, her encouragement slicing through the air. Jake squeezed her arm, both of them watching in rapt attention. Sarah stood nearby, her heart in her throat, silently praying for both cubs. The air crackled with tension. Samuel took a deep breath and pushed again, feeling the soft fur of the little cub brushing against him. "I'm not leaving you," he yelled, channeling every ounce of bravery he could muster. With one final heave, he managed to clear a space large enough for the smaller cub to escape. "Go. Now," he urged. The cub, understanding the urgency in his tone, sprang towards freedom, slipping past the rocks like a shadow on the ground. Suddenly, a loud cry erupted from the eagle as it swooped down, talons outstretched, aiming directly at them. Samuel's heart sank as he turned just in time to see the threat descending fast. The timing felt almost cruel. "Move!" Sarah shouted desperately as she darted forward, planting herself between the eagle and the cub. The mother tiger, too, was ready to defend her young, despite the threat looming over them both. In that moment of chaos between heartbeat and breath, the world slowed. Samuel's eyes met the cub's, and there was a shared understanding, a bond formed through this fight for survival. "Stay behind us," Sarah commanded, her voice steady and fierce. But Samuel felt something stirring within him, the undying urge to protect others. He could hear his heartbeat thundering in his ears, overriding the fear. The eagle retreated slightly, reassessing its approach. The wind rustled through the trees, and in that small pause, Samuel felt a flicker of hope blossom within him. "We can do this," he thought, remembering his mother's strength. He was ready to stand tall together. They could face anything. Just as Sarah prepared to counter the eagle's next move, Samuel looked up at her. The time had come for them to unite. "On three," she called out, and Samuel felt the strength of his family infuse his spirit. A one, a two, but before she could call out three, a piercing call echoed through the woods, louder than any cry they had heard before. It was a sound that sent chills through Samuel's tiny body, making him question if their moment of courage would hold. What other surprises lurked in the shadows of the woods, waiting to reveal themselves? And would they be enough to protect the cub? Samuel froze, the pulse of fear temporarily numbing his instincts. The chilling sound reverberated through the trees, echoing across the clearing. Glancing at Sarah, he saw the same question in her wide eyes. What was coming next? The eagle circled above, losing interest for just a moment, which gave them a precious instant to breathe. But that sound, it was more than just the call of a bird. It was a warning. Something deep within the forest stirred, and with it, a shift in the atmosphere. "Stay sharp," Sarah urged. Her voice was tense, holding the weight of leadership. Samuel felt a knot of anxiety in his stomach. He turned back to the cub, who was still peering at him from the safety of the rocks, eyes wide with vulnerability. For the first time, Samuel really understood what bravery meant. It wasn't the absence of fear, it was pushing through it for those who needed you. As he steadied himself, Samuel caught Emma's encouraging gaze. "You're a hero, Samuel," she mouthed silently. He couldn't help but feel a rush of warmth at her belief in him, igniting more determination to protect his newfound friend. Then came the ground-shaking approach, a rumble emanating from the shadowy thicket beyond. Out of the underbrush stepped a figure, a massive, majestic bear. Its fur glistened dappled with shadows, and the muscles rippled under its powerful frame. Samuel's heart raced. This wasn't just any bear. It looked fierce, its eyes wild with instinct, driven by a hunger that would challenge the courage of even the bravest of souls. "Everyone, ready," Sarah rasped. She stood tall, shoulders squared, and Samuel felt a surge of pride at her fearless stance. But could they stand against a bear? The eagle screamed again, its interest rekindled as it spiraled lower. But the bear was determined, eyes locked on the small cub clinging to freedom just beyond the jagged stones. Samuel's mind raced, fueled by both fear and a fierce yearning to take action. He stepped closer to the cub. "I won't let them hurt you," he declared, even though his voice trembled. "Samuel, don't engage," Sarah shouted, trying to protect him. He risked a glance back at her. He could see the worry etched on her face, but all at once, something inside him snapped. This was not just some game, this was real life, a fight for survival. Before he could stop himself, he moved forward, fueled by instinct and a newfound resolve. He had to make the bear see them as allies instead of prey. "Hey!" Samuel yelled, his small voice carrying a surprising intensity. "Over here!" The bear paused, eyes finally shifting from the cub to the loud little creature daring to stand his ground. In that electric moment, Samuel's heart throbbed wildly. He was afraid, yes, but he was also the protector. The thought rang in his mind, a mantra he wouldn't let go of. The tension hung thick in the air as Samuel stood his ground, eyes narrowing on the bear. The surroundings seemed to fade away. Would his brave act buy them time? Would it be enough? Suddenly, a familiar rustle broke the silence. Out from the dense foliage, a burly figure joined the fray. It was the mother tiger, her protective growl reverberating against the trees. The reunion of instincts was palpable, and Samuel felt a flicker of hope ignite again. If they could stand together against all odds, maybe just maybe they could keep the cub safe. The real question loomed ahead: would bravery be their shield or would it drive them into deeper danger? What would they do next? The ultimate choice was yet to unfold. The tension hung in the air, thick and suffocating. But Sarah stood firm, her heart racing with fierce determination. She knew they had come too far to back down now. "Together!" she shouted, searching the crowd for the steady faces of her children and neighbors. "We're not alone in this." With her voice wrapped in strength, she felt that fire igniting within the crowd. Emma squeezed Jake's hand, and Sarah could almost see them drawing courage from one another. The young cub, fighting free from the rocks, pressed closer to its mother, the bond between them unbreakable. Samuel stood beside them, a tiny warrior filled with a newfound sense of duty. In that moment, something incredible happened. The mother tiger, fierce and protective, stepped forward in a synchronized dance with her brave cub, creating a visual testament of their unity. The crowd mirrored their movements, a blend of human and animal, hearts beating in unison. "On three!" Sarah shouted again, eyes fixed on the colossal figures rising before them. 1, 2, 3. With that, everyone surged toward the bear, voices rising in a harmonious blend of urgency and strength. It was a collective roar of defiance, a declaration against fear that filled the clearing with power. The bear hesitated, taken aback by their fierce unity. Sarah could see confusion crinkle its brow as it tried to gauge the growing presence before it. And just like that, doubt flickered in its eyes. Samuel watched the bear with wide-eyed determination. "You won't take them?" he screamed, his youthful voice carrying more weight than any grown-up could manage. He stood tall, back straight, a symbol of courage that made Sarah's heart swell. The mother tiger, sensing her baby's bravery, nudged him closer. The bear, now recognizing the bond and the combined strength of these creatures and people, appeared to ponder its next move. For every step the bear took forward, the tigers stood their ground, unwavering. In that surreal stillness, everything became crystal clear. This wasn't just about rescuing a cub from rocks or intimidating a bear, it was about community, love, and the indomitable spirit that arises when you fight for one another. Then, as if orchestrated by unseen hands, everything shifted in an instant. Out of the thick brush, the mother bear appeared, her presence commanding. She wasn't looking for a fight, she was there to protect her young, just as the mother tiger was. The air buzzed with recognition, in an extraordinary moment of instinct and understanding, the mother bear let out a low rumble, a warning mixed with a plea, and the young bear began to edge backward into the safety of the undergrowth, leaving the tension in the air to dissipate like mist in the morning sun. Sarah fell to her knees. Relief washed over her like rain on parched ground. They had faced darkness together and emerged stronger. The mother tiger turned to Samuel, who had proven he could be brave despite his size. She nudged him gently, as if imparting wisdom through a simple gesture. Samuel's eyes glimmered as he found himself enshrined in a rare moment of triumph. The protector had found his courage. Emma rushed forward, embracing the little tiger in a bubble of joy. "You did it, Samuel. You saved the cub." Jake joined them, his smile lighting up the forest as he knelt beside the now free cub, who nuzzled into Emma's hand. "We really can do anything together," he exclaimed, laughter bubbling up from their small victory. With the sun setting in the background, the sweet symphony of nature returned. The crowd erupted in cheers, clapping hands together, solidifying an unspoken bond forged in courage. Sarah looked around and saw the connections, the warmth and the laughter, the shared glances of relief, and the understanding that they had all transformed together. "Thank you," a neighbor said, stepping toward Sarah. "You showed us how to stand together. We can't let fear hold us back." In that moment, Sarah realized they had not just saved a cub, they had revived hope in each other, rebuilding the very fabric of their community. As night fell, they watched the tiger family retreat to safety, silhouettes against the fading light, a promise of new beginnings, of strength and unity. With hearts full of hope and possibility, the crowd began to disperse, faces alight with warmth rather than fear. And as they walked home, Sarah took her children by the hand, wiping the tears of joy from her eyes. "Let us remember this day," she whispered. "Sometimes, it takes a brave little cub to remind us all what we can do together." They held tightly to one another, knowing they had created something much more powerful than they'd ever realized. This was the moment they would carry in their hearts, their path to resilience. Sarah's heart swelled for what they had built together, and as they stepped into the night, one thought echoed loudly in her mind: they would always fight for each other, no matter the odds. You need to subscribe now to catch the next exclusive stories unfolding right before your eyes. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. We're in this together. Comment your reactions and how this story moved you. We want to hear your thoughts, and don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Let us spread the inspiration far and wide.